What's going on, Show Nation? It's Movie with Movie Gaming TV, and in today's video, I'm going to give you 30 tips to become immediately better at MLB The Show 23. I'm going to put you on game through a lot of experience, a lot of note-taking. I've just been studying this game tremendously since it has dropped, and I hope that by the end of this video, you'll find something, maybe one of these, that will stick with you and make you a better player at MLB The Show 23. First thing that we're going to talk about is reaction. Reaction is huge in MLB The Show 23 for fielding, especially in the outfield. So you can see in this current build that I have right now, Jazz Chisholm has 93 reaction in center field. He pretty much gets to everything in the gap, which is vital. Sammy Sosa, same way, 91 reaction, and Ricky Henderson, same way here, 97 reaction. They're going to cover everything hit in front of them, behind them, to the side of them. They're going to take away a lot of extra base hits. It's just a very, very important stat to be cognizant of. Joe Morgan, 92 reaction. Jeter has 89. And then I take a player like Trout, who has decent fielding, silver fielding, but only 62 reaction. That speed, reaction, and fielding are all going to come into play when it comes to getting to fly balls or ground balls or what have you. So a player like Trout is much better served on the bench as the DH than he is in the outfield with those kind of fielding stats. So be on the lookout for that. Another attribute that's huge this year is hitting clutch and pitching clutch. So you can see that Bobby Witt Jr. has 125 clutch, meaning that anytime there's a runner on second or third base, he has 125 contact, which just makes his card way, way, way better because that situation can occur quite often. It also can be a situation where if Ricky Henderson or someone fast is ahead of Bobby Witt Jr., I'm really thinking about trying to steal second base so that I can get the 125 clutch and have the 125 contact for him. And pitchers can have that same stat as well. You can see this Shohei Ohtani from the World Baseball Classic program, 122 pitching clutch. New thing this year, very important to keep in mind. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is there are two different kinds of pitchers in MLB The Show. There are what I call junk ball pitchers and what I call fastball builds. So a junk ball pitcher would be someone like Dustin May, sinker, slurve, four-seam, cutter, and circle change. Doesn't throw too many four-seam fastballs. He's a junk ball pitcher, so when you have that PCI, you really don't have to look for anything straight out of the pitcher's hand. It's always going to be moving. So you're going to be moving your PCI just a little bit to the inside. Let's say it's right on right versus May, and you're trying to attack that sinker, or to the outside. But you really can take out the pitch shape of a straight fastball for the most part versus most junk pitchers. If they have an outlier fastball and a bunch of junk pitches, think about a pitcher like Roki Sasaki here, who's amazing. You almost have to go off of the fastball even though they have so many junk pitches, but it's just nice to have a pitcher like this with 5 different pitch shapes, which we're going to talk about more. Pitch shapes are pretty much everything when it comes to hitting and pitching. But to make a long story short, if you face someone that's that sinker cutter, their junk ball, be ready to move your PCI. If it's a fastball pitcher like Hunter Green, you're going to be focusing more on like straight PCI aim versus the fastball. All right, so let's talk more about what I think is the most vital thing, either in real life baseball or in this video game in particular, is pitch shape, pitch speed, pitch velocity, and pitch location. If you can understand all 4 of those things as you're hitting, it's going to set you far and apart. So what do I mean by pitch shape? Well, we're looking at Rob Nen here. He has a four-seam fastball, a slider, a splitter, and a curveball. The simplest way that I can explain to you this phenomena is just the fact that I think a lot of times when people go to hit in MLB The Show, they think that the pitch is going to travel to the plate almost like it's a knuckleball. Like it could do something like after it leaves the release point, it like goes all crazy into the zone, but that's not what happens. There's only 4 pitches that Rob Nen has, which means that he has 4 pitch shapes or flight paths, if you want to think about it like that, for the ball to travel after it leaves his release point. So he can throw a straight fastball, which has that kind of pitch shape, that kind of flight path. He can throw a slider, which is going to have more of a bounce. You know, it's going to have that twist in the flight path. He can throw a curveball, which is going to have more of an up and down. It's not more of a 12-6. It's more of like a traditional curveball, so it's almost like that diagonal angle. but you can see that pitch shape as well. And then he has the splitter, which is his final pitch shape. But those are the only pitch shapes that you have to worry about. You don't have to worry about a sinker going to the inside, right? So there's never going to be a pitch shape where it has that of a sinker, because obviously he doesn't have that. But that's so important to think about. Like, you don't need to be taking swings on pitches that don't exist from the pitcher. So you need to be frequently checking to see what different pitch shapes do they have. Basically, what pitches do they have? What are the different speeds? The four-seam fastball for Rob Nen is very fast. His curveball is a lot slower. His slider is pretty fast for a slider. All of those details matter. If you can start to eliminate pitch shapes, like you're just pretty much looking for the fastball, and you see that shape and you're not worried about the sinker, I can't explain how important this is to your pitch recognition and your ability to hit. So I went ahead and hopped into a Conquest game here versus the CBU so I can talk about this a little bit more. I'm facing Luis Castillo on All-Star. Four-seam, sinker, circle change, and a slider. So I don't have to worry about any kind of a curveball. Those are the four pitch shapes that I'm going to be looking for from his release point while I am hitting. So here's the pitch. I see that little bit of a bend towards the end. We see that it's a sinker. We move our PCI accordingly, and we get a hit. So here is the pitcher, and here's what I'm talking about with the release point. Let's go ahead and hide this. When he starts to throw right here, right as he's about to release the ball, that's what we're going to be picking up. And it's vital to pick up the release point also, because they might have a different style of how they pitch. So they might be over the top. They might be quarter, 3/4 release point. They might be a side armor. That's going to be where you have to pick up the ball, because that's where you're going to first start to see the flight path of the ball and the wrist. So I like to look at their fingertips and the wrist, because sometimes they'll snap their wrist a little bit on a curveball or what have you. Now as it's going, we hit the release point. Now we're watching the pitch shape of the ball as much as we can. If it's going to be a fastball, obviously it's just going to stay straight the same way, but that's kind of where you start to see the bend. Like, it's not that long after it leaves his hand. So it leaves his hand, it looks straight right there, like it's a fastball still, and then you start to see that bend. And when you start to see that bend, your brain can process what pitch it is, the location, and the velocity. But that is the key right there. Picking up that release point and seeing what type of pitch shape the pitcher has, knowing that none of these pitch shapes are going to react like a knuckleball. The pitch shape is just going to execute the flight path of the pitch chosen. And it really starts to minimize the different outcomes that can be possible when you're facing a particular pitcher. This might seem like a lot right now, but it's going to build you into a much better hitter as you eliminate pitch shapes, you recognize pitch shapes. It's almost like the Astros or something. When you know what pitch is coming and you can recognize what pitch is coming from this release point a lot faster, you're going to get a lot better at the game. If there was anything I could tell you about this game, worry about your timing more than the PCI placement. You're going to need both, but think about them as two separate meters, right? Like, if they were two things that are being measured in the game code, they're measuring your swing timing and they're measuring your PCI placement. Now, the next tip that I have for you is whenever you open a pack in MLB The Show, I don't recommend that you buy any packs. You don't need to buy any of the packs. I'm more so talking about like packs that you get from grinding a conquest or reaching some sort of goal. Any kind of random pack like this. So I want to show you this. When you open up the pack, you're going to get usually an equipment, something like that in this first slot, and a bunch of players in the rest of the slots. What you can do is when you open this pack on this screen, you hit triangle to look at their attributes, and you hit L1 to look at their locations, and you can see the buy now is at 80 and the sell now is at 35. So instead of just letting this card go into your binder, you can just immediately list it for 79, set and forget it. And you can do it on every single card. And this will keep you from accumulating a lot of free agents, as even the free agents, they sell very fast. So you can just always get pretty much full value for anything that you open up out of a pack. Now you might be wondering, how do you get a bunch of really good cards in this game without spending a lot of money and without buying any packs? Well, you have to go to the community market. Now, when you have a low amount of stubs, the things that you want to flip in the marketplace, in my opinion, would be gold tier equipment at first. So you can just go to the gold tier equipment at first, and you can pretty much go through all of these. They're not that expensive. They will sell very, very quickly. But what I really would recommend that you do if you have a low amount of stubs is to sell these perks. So go into the perks, and then what you need to do from there is go into the minimum price, and you can put this at either 1500 or 1600. And what that will do is it will get rid of a lot of the perks that don't sell or that people don't want. And then, for example, you can get something like this Speed 3 1961. It should sell almost immediately. And then when you flip it on the other side, you're going to pick up a profit of almost 600 stubs. And this should go pretty fast. You can pretty much just go through and buy all of these, flip all of them. Obviously, if they have more of a gap, they're going to be better. But it goes really quite fast. You can start to build up, 30K to 100K a day, if not more, depending on how much you want to play. Now, let's say that you have more stubs. You've been doing that for a while, and you've got a bankroll of maybe like 300 to 500K. What you can do from there to keep building out your stack and to keep getting stubs, because you're always going to make more stubs flipping than actually playing the game. You really want to be ideally while you're playing. So if you're going to go do events, or you're going to go do mini seasons or BR, whatever you're going to do, make sure you have stuff in the market, and in between games and in between the grind, you're going and flipping them and making sure that, you're canceling out some orders, you're rebuying some things. But the thing that you want to flip the most is this equipment. Now, there's a ton of bats in this that you don't want to do anything with. You don't want to do anything in regards to flipping. So let me show you another filter here. You're going to go into the equipment, and then you're going to filter at 20,000. That's going to get rid of a lot of the riffraff and just get you to the key items that you want to go after. And the more that you flip also in here, the more you're going to see what things normally go for. So, for example, these Old Hickory Rhythm batting gloves are through the roof for absolutely no reason right now, especially on the right side. And the only way that I know that is after you do this for like a week, you're going to start to see certain trends. And you really can't go too wrong as long as you get the item sold to you. You're never going to flip something by buying it. You're going to get sold to you, and then you're going to sell it over here, so you're going to flip it. But something like these batting gloves, you might get stuck with a 30K. That's way too much. These are more worth like 22 or 23. They're just on the high end. So you're going to learn like not only gaps, but more so by buying all the items that you can to try to flip, you're going to notice like different patterns and how they sell, and certain items are going to become your favorite ones to flip. But these are so much better than the perks, because for 28,756, which would be the order that I could put in right here, I can resell them for way more. I can make 3,000 on this one flip. So that makes it a lot less like I have to go and put in the orders than using the Road to the Show perks. It's just the equipment's always going to be the best. You have a huge market of Road to the Show players that aren't too concerned about this costing 35 versus 28. They just want the gear for their player, and that's it. Something that's kind of interesting as well is you really should never buy one single individual pack, because in BR, if you go to forfeit entry, which I can on this one, you'll always get a pack. It only costs 1,500 to do a BR draft. You might as well do a BR draft like every single time, instead of buying one individual pack. And again, we're using that technique from earlier of I picked up that pack, and I'm just going to go through, and these aren't going to be stuck in my inventory. I'm going to get the stubs back right now. Jersey, I always just quick sell. Jerseys really only go for like 100 to 200. There's really no point to do the collections either for the jerseys. So you can almost just kind of sell all of that stuff. But with the pack, a solo pack being 1,500, why not just draft a BR team every single time and see if you can get like an unbelievable BR team. This is one of the more random tips, but in the exchanges this year, I'm not sure if they've had this in the past, but you can exchange mini teams, icons, uniforms, and championship banners. So if you play a lot of mini seasons and you're accumulating a bunch of those icons, uniforms, and championship banners that you get at the end of a mini season for like winning it all, you actually can go in here and exchange the items to get different packs, like a 5-pack of Ball Is a Habit. So just if you play a lot of mini seasons, you're definitely going to want to exchange over here. Okay, so here's another huge tip if you made it to tip 21 here, and it has to do with your accuracy with pinpoint pitching. So you can see that circle at the bottom of the pinpoint meter at the top. That circle, that blue circle, is moving over as I move the ball to the inside. It's moving to the left as I move to the left. Now, when you pitch with the pinpoint and you come back down to this spot right here, always miss to the side of the plate. So it's to the left right here, right? So when I come down, I want to miss towards the hitter if it was a right-handed hitter, okay? I don't necessarily need to hit that circle, because hitting the circle is fine, but it puts us at more risk. Because if we do this and then we miss, like, let's just go straight down, look where the ball goes. The ball goes like straight back over the middle. So treat that circle like it's the plate, all right? You need to go, if anything, aim for the outside half. If you aim for the outside half, if it goes back, if you miss by a little bit and it goes into the middle, it's just going to go where you want it to go. But if you aim for the outside half, it's going to be a lot better. It's just going to be a lot better to do that. Almost like having half of the ball, half of the white dot in the, like something like that. That's going to keep it out of the middle of the plate consistently. So if you can do that, you won't be missing over the middle. You'll at least like either be dotting on the edge or you'll miss to the inside like that, which is fine. The last thing that you want to be doing is trying to aim inside, and now you're just leaving a pitch like over the middle or what have you. The next thing that I want to talk about is the DualSense Edge in 120 hertz. DualSense Edge is the premium PlayStation 5 controller. I absolutely love using it. I did a video about it with MLB The Show 22, but some things have changed since I've done that video. I need to do an update video for it. The DualSense Edge controller has a couple of extra buttons on the back that are really nice. And it also has this sensitivity curve. So I've set the sensitivity curve to precise. That's going to make the left stick have less sensitivity, which makes it, in my opinion, easier to aim. Just because the PCI and MLB The Show, the default sensitivity is so sensitive that I think it's just a lot easier to make it as precise. So you can set these profiles. That's how I set the precise sensitivity curve. Just makes it a little bit less sensitive, which gives me better aim, I feel like. And then for the button assignments, I set normal swing to the back right button. I feel like these buttons are a lot more responsive than the face buttons. The face buttons to me get stuck at times. Like if you use a controller for a long time, the X button or the square button or the circle or the triangle or whatever, it kind of wears out. Whereas these back buttons feel more like a mechanical keyboard. Now, I've got to say also, though, that my back right button, one time I hit the button too hard and the button that you put in there, it like flew off. And since then, it hasn't been as good. Like my left one's a little bit more clicky, but I still can't go away from the right one. I feel like over time it has gotten a little bit more improved, but just be a little bit more gentle with the controller than I have. And then obviously you can set up different profiles. I really, really highly recommend this controller. I have no idea why putting two buttons on the controller takes it from like $70 to $200. It really should be like more like $100, $130, but it's got to be like something where they're like, we can't price this thing too close to our other controllers because it'll mess with the market. There's got to be some business purpose to doing it. But I really, really like this controller. It should be the standard on, like, if they come out with a PS5 Pro, it should be the standard controller moving forward. Like, we've just really miscalculated how nice it is to have these back buttons. It's nice for any game that you play, and it should be the main buttons that you use for like your X and your square buttons, like, or your R2 or whatever you feel like. But these are the best buttons to hit on the entire controller, are these back buttons. So it's important to set them up. Now, the other thing that you need to know about is this game can run in 120 frames. So if you have the next gen hardware, if you had the PS5 or you had the Xbox, it's very important for you to run on 1080p, and then you're going to go down to, I believe this setting that is automatic. Just make sure it's on automatic instead of off. 120 frames helps you tremendously while hitting, because instead of only 60 frames of animation, you have 120 frames of animation. It's just way easier to read pitches, to move the PCI. The PCI feels less laggy. Everything about it is just so much better. You're going to need 120 frames per second monitor, or like over 120 hertz basically. And then you're going to need the next gen console, and then you're also going to need an HDMI cable that can do 120 frames. So if you have no idea what any of that means, just go to your local electronics shop if you're interested and talk to the employee there. They'll know what all of these things mean. Just tell them you need over 120 hertz. You need an HDMI cable that can do over 120 hertz. Just let them know what's going on, and they'll be able to figure that out, or just do some simple research. But you really want to be at 120 hertz playing this game. It's a dramatic increase that you gotta have, and that's really nice. The next tip that I have is more of a general tip. You really want to take you want to see at least 10 pitches per inning, and if it helps you think about it, rarely will they ever attack the zone with 9 straight pitches, all for strikes, that all are called strikes. So don't be afraid to take pitches, see pitches. It's super important to do so. Now, the next tip that I want to talk to you about, I'm going to try to do this against the computer and explain this the best I can. I might have to do some of this in the video editing, but the PCI that I like the most, and see that the pitcher's going to throw some pitches and stuff. The PCI that I like the most is bat PCI. I go with, I believe it's 70%. Let's see, bat. I go bat, none, yellow, and 70%. And I really like this dot. And at first I did not like the bat. I just wish I could have only the yellow dot. But I really like the bat. And what I really want you to think about, if you have like a really slow bat, like you're always getting beat on sinkers to the inside or fastballs to the inside, you really can utilize this PCI to visualize getting the bat head through the zone. Now, that statement in and of itself, it doesn't mean very much to you right now, but it will in a moment. So the bat head that I'm referring to is the bottom part of the bat. If you don't get that part of the bat, if you don't get the bat all the way through the zone, you're not going to be able to hit the ball very well at all. So you've got to get the bat through the zone, and that bat head is the last part of the bat that you would have to have a chance to hit the ball before you're either too early or too late. So we want to focus on getting that bat head through the zone. You want to think about starting your swing much earlier. So you want to think about the end of the bat, the top part of the bat, closer to the barrel for timing. If it gets past the end of the bat, then you're going to miss the ball. The end of the bat has to get through the zone to make contact, and it can help with squaring up the ball. You still have to think about the pitch shape, the velocity, and the location of that. This is what you want to start thinking about after that. When I look at this PCI, I'd like the dot and then the bat head to the right, and just making sure that with the timing of the pitch, that bat head has a chance to get through the zone. And I want to be a little bit early with it, if anything. I want to hit the ball out in front of the plate. It's always going to depend on where it's pitched for the best timing, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. And it takes a little bit to get that bat head through the zone. It takes a little bit of time. It's not 1-to-1. So it's not like so much like you're catching the ball with the PCI at this point where you see the dot. It's like you're going to take like maybe a half second or a second to start the swing, and then you want to make sure that you're calculating in your brain enough time for you to start the swing and for that bat head to get all the way through the zone so you can hit high and inside pitches. And then when you're looking at the pitch shape, let's see, we notice that it's a fastball and we're going to get that bat head through the zone like really quick off the pitch shape, or we see the curveball. just getting that bat head through the zone. Don't catch it back. Don't have the bat head be back. Even if you hit it with the bat, don't have the bat head be back and catching it back. You want that thing to get through the zone, through the zone, through the zone as much as possible. And your timing is just going to be based off of that bat head at the top, because that is the last chance that you would have if you hit the ball off the end of the bat, basically. So once you start to think about that, your timing on inside pitches is just going to get a lot better. And again, another tip is just to pick up the pitcher's release point at fingertips. I broke it down, and I'm kind of, the way I'm recording this, I'm kind of like looking at the hitting screen out of like my left eye and my script out of my right eye. So I'm doing my best to hit like this right now. But you want to pick up the pitcher's release point and specifically their fingertips. Like that's what I usually like to look at. When I'm shooting like a jump shot in 2K, it's the same way. Like if I focus on their hands and their fingertips, I can like hit any single type of jump shot. And it's the same here. I'm just kind of trying to pick up Greinke's fingers, his wrists, see if I can get any clue as to what the pitch is going to be before it gets to the plate or right as it leaves his hand. If I can get that extra half second to know it's a fastball, my aim is going to be so much better. You know, it's going to be so much better. I can already set up the aim a lot easier than if I were not to do that. The next tip that I'm going to give you is sometimes you have to hesitate. What do I mean by that? When you're pitching, say you're playing somebody that's really good. It's not like one of these games that you're doing in events where like your opponent is just not very good. This is one of those games where anything you seem to pitch, they're just absolutely crushing. So what do you have to do to combat that? You need to switch up your rhythm while you're pitching and switch up your timing. And that's what I mean about hesitating. So like on one pitch, you know, you might throw a fastball fast. Then the next pitch, you might wait 3 to 4 seconds before you throw it. And then you're going to throw your pitch. And then the next pitch, you might throw really fast. Really good hitters in this game, if you just consistently are putting the ball in the zone and consistently pitching like really fast, they're going to get into a rhythm where it's almost like this muscle memory that just takes over, where they're just going to blast everything. You have to change up your tempo a little bit. That's the only way you're going to break them out of that rhythm. Now, the next thing I want to talk to you about is absolutely huge also for pitch tunneling. All right, so we have Alek Manoah here, who has a four-seam, a slider, circle, and a sinker. One of my favorite pitchers in the game. Also, a little bonus tip, I like pitchers that pitch from the stretch because there's not two different motions, at least I should say two different muscle memories for timing in regards to whether or not they're out of the windup or the stretch. If they're just constantly in the stretch, all of their pitches are the same. All of the inputs on the controller are the same. There's not two different speeds for their windup and their stretch. So any pitcher out of the stretch is just better still in MLB The Show 23, in my opinion. We can put this fastball pretty much anywhere that we want to spot it. We're just going to use it kind of on the first pitch. You know, if you've seen like stuff with like my Corbin Burns, like sequencing in the past, this is a new variation on it. And you take something like this sinker and you're going to put it right, you're going to put the baseball right below the zone. Like you can see where the actual baseball is. You can see where those yellow arrows are. But we're going to put it like right there versus a human. And it's either going to like hit the edge for a strike or it's going to be below. And it has this very tough shape that it's very difficult to tell if it's going to be a strike or be a ball. And a lot of times when they hit that sinker in that location, they're just going to ground out. So they're going to ground out a lot. You're going to pitch it down like that with the sinker, and they're going to hit that into the ground a lot. And then from the same tunnel, we're going to put the ball like right here, right in the center, just maybe a little bit below. And then we can use that slider. I love that pitch shape for the slider. A little bit below the zone. Nothing to worry about if it catches the zone. I like that shape. It's just another slider shape to use with like this one that you would have to like put them away on 2 strikes. But I really like pitching from that spot in particular. I can use the circle out of it also. So these look like strikes, but they're not, but they can catch the zone. I really like pitching from that particular spot with my breaking pitches. Specifically like sinkers, sliders, changeups, and 12-6 curveballs. And always take time to spot your pitches too. Don't rush to this. That's why I really like strike zones, because I get to see a bunch of extra pitches while I'm pitching. I just get to see a bunch of extra pitch shapes. And there's a big difference between spotting it like right here, spotting it right here with the full par in the zone, spotting it outside the zone. Maybe you want to like spot something over here to a left-handed hitter with a fastball, to have them try and not get their timing right on the outside, like waiting back enough on the outside. But spotting your pitches is very important. Make sure you spot your pitches every single time where you want them to be. The other thing I would advise too is, I know this sounds simple, but you need to be focusing on getting a perfect pitch every single time. It's definitely possible to do. Say you throw like 11 pitches in an inning, you really would want to have maybe like 7 of them, and if you're doing good, 7 of them would be perfect. But you need to focus on that when you're pitching. Don't just go up here and throw it like that. Like, you need to really go spot it and then just do this perfectly every time. You're gonna be so much better off just trying to just maintain that. Just think, I need to get a perfect on every pitch and it'll be fine. The next tip I have for you is to only take open shots. This is a concept in basketball. If you're going to shoot in something like 2K, you want to be open. You don't want to be contested. It's the same thing in this game. If you're off balance a little bit, or you're not ready to hit the ball, why even swing? Just take the strike. You get 2 free strikes to work with. If you're going to move the PCI late to it and have really bad timing on it, you might as well not have swung. Or if it's outside the zone, you might as well not have swung. Just take the pitch. Even like a pitch like that, I should have definitely taken. But if you don't see the pitch shape well, you don't pick it up well, the release point, just move on to the next pitch. The next tip that I have for you would be with base running, and that is just to be a very smart base runner. Don't try to be making a bunch of plays on the base pass. Don't take extra bases that aren't there. That is one of the biggest ways to kill your momentum and to give your opponent a life. If you're just running into free outs on the base pass, don't do it. Take the smart approach to running the bases. Don't try to extend it into a double when it's not there. Don't try to extend it into a triple when it's not there. Don't get unorganized. If you just keep people on and don't give away a lot of outs in that regard, you're going to be a lot better off. Another tip that I have for you is to think about that. Most people cannot take 4 balls for a walk. So a lot of times at a 3-2 count, especially if you have the first base open, you do not need to give them a pitch. Like, if you're a right-handed pitcher, it's 3-2. They've got a really good left-handed hitter up. You do not need to be giving them a pitch in that situation. You need to be throwing it outside of the zone, seeing if they'll chase, because lots of times they will chase on 3-2 because they have to protect. And that's just a way that, you can avoid having them make the huge contact, because a lot of baseball is just managing situations. Like, they get a runner on first and second, and you find a way to get out of it. Or you get first and second, and you find a way to get them home. You stay calm in the situation, you get good pitches to hit, and you make it happen. Another thing when you're fielding in this game, let me see if I can get a fielding opportunity here. Okay, so in this one, I want to talk about fielding. Now, there's a different throw meter in this game. Usually when you're on the run, like to the right or to the left, the throw meter takes a little bit longer to load up. If your feet are pretty much set when you're making the throw, it's more so in the middle. So that's really what you got to think about. If you're on the move, it's typically a little bit longer. And if you are not on the move, it is going to be more so in the center. You can see it right here. It's talking about that also. If you get it in the yellow on the infield on a ground ball and you have a good first baseman, like let's say you have a diamond first baseman, they'll pretty much make all the scoops. Where you have like a bronze or a common, that's where they're not going to make as many of the scoops. Like McGuire kind of can make like 1 out of every 4 scoops. But I'd almost kind of go like that. If they're common, they're not going to make it. If they're bronze, maybe 1 out of 4. Silver, 2 out of 4. Silver seems fine. Gold's like 3 out of 4, if not all. And then diamond's like pretty much all scoops that they're going to make on throws on the yellow. If you want to cancel a throw, you can just tap the button of the base that you threw to again, like I did right there. But you're going to watch the meter. That was a yellow. And you can see Guerrero with no fielding. He can't make the play. But you're going to kind of watch the meter and watch a player out of the corner of your eye, because you need to start preloading the throw before it gets to your player. So
You're going to be kind of focused a little bit more on the meter than the player and just kind of get to the ball out of the corner of your eye. Make sure that you're in the green every single time. It's definitely more difficult this year than it has been in the past, which is exciting because it's just kind of not every single play is going to be an auto out anymore. So I like it a lot. If you have a bad throw in the outfield, you can always just cancel it. Or if you want to have a lot more consistent throws in the outfield, just hit L1. I feel like when I hit L1 to throw to the cutoff man, it's almost always right in the center. Now, another thing to keep in mind is this game is entirely built through the PCI meter and also through the pinpoint meter. That's what controls everything. And the rest of it is just kind of what I like to call an optical illusion. So I know it's difficult to understand, but the main thing that you need to be focusing on, your inputs on both of those things matter. If you don't want to see the batter at all, and just think of this as like almost like a game within a game of just moving a dot to a target, that's pretty much what this game is. The swings definitely help me with the timing. There's no doubt about that. You know, there's different like loads and launch points that players have in their swings. There's different like tells that I get from pitching with a pitcher. Sometimes I see like the pitcher's glove in a particular spot, or I can just get their timing down. Like, you're going to like different motions and swings, but at the end of the day, it's coming down to the input of the PCI meter, moving this dot to the ball, and then executing on the pinpoint meter. So just focus on those two things. If you got to look directly at the pinpoint meter to hit it every time, do that. If you got to look at this dot and this PCI every single time, you got to do that. You know, it's one of the things from strike zone is you can kind of feel like you're at the plate IRL. So that's kind of one of those things. But I want you to focus on what actually impacts the game. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like at times it does. The next one I have for you is to read pitch sequencing patterns while they are pitching. What pitch location is generally the first of an at-bat? What do they do on 0 and 2, 2 and 2, 3 and 2? Do they consistently select 3 pitches to use in a row every single at-bat? Do they pitch like they pitch versus the CPU? So let me go ahead and jump back on the mound here. So they go in like fastball, and then they're going to go for their next pitch. They're going to go to a sinker, and then on their next pitch, they're going to go to a slider. And they just do that every single time. They just do that every single time. Or they pitch like they've been pitching after they played a bunch of mini seasons or conquests, and they're just in grind mode and they're throwing way too many strikes. They're just throwing way too many strikes that, you know, every single first pitch is a strike. Stuff like that. 1 and 2, what is their go-to pitch? Do they like to go to a curveball in the dirt? Do they like to go to a slider outside? Like, what is, do they try to sneak in a high fastball? Like, what is their go-to pitch on 1 and 2? Because a lot of times people will do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. They won't switch it up multiple times through the game. They just get caught in that chess move of patterns that's just the same over and over again. Now, the next tip that I have for you is a lot like trying to make all of your pitches perfect. You need to try for 10 runs a game. If you can get to 10 runs a game, I feel like mathematically you're going to win a lot of your games. So it just kind of gives you a goal or a benchmark to go after every game offensively. You need to get 10 runs every single game. The next tip that I have for you is Shield Woods Park is a new minor league stadium that is a max elevation park that is pretty much lag free. If you love old school ship it, or if you just love hitting home runs, or you feel like you can outplay your opponent a lot of the times, like you can pitch better than them and hit better than them, it's a great park. You're going to get rewarded for all of your swings, and usually a couple that you didn't even have that great a PCI placement. Maybe you just had great timing. I feel like a lot of good people are going to play there because they're going to execute more pitches, and then they're going to put better swings on the ball that could still lead to some lineouts and stuff, but over time, like more often than not, they're going to win a lot of games there. So it's just a great park if you need to like grind stats or parallels or whatever. It's the new awesome park in MLB The Show 23 in my opinion. I do get tired of it sometimes, and I'll go to like the ship it with less altitude now. It's all kind of personal taste, but if you are a person that likes the altitude, check out that park. Just another quick tip here that I have is that most of the time they're going to throw a ball on the first pitch. I just find that like a lot of the time, if I'm in that mentality, I do well. Like you really want to get 1-0 when you're hitting and 0-1 when you're pitching, because the metrics start to slide heavily in your favor when that is the case. But one thing I think about sometimes is I kind of root for every single pitch to be a ball, because there's no defense against a walk. So if they can't even put it in the zone, then that's not good for them. And I think a lot of times too, we think the folks that we're facing are much better pitchers than they actually are. They're struggling just like you are or I am to do their best. So they're not Randy Johnson out there. They're going to make some mistakes. And they're also going to have a tough time like dotting every single pitch. More often than not, they're going to throw a ball. And it's not because they're trying to throw a ball. It's just they're trying their best to do their best with the input. And then again, just the sinker and the slider. I love these new totaling locations. I've never made a video talking about putting a ball down here, but it's super effective. It's super, super effective to get outs versus real players. And the last thing that I have to say to you is to stop being afraid of R2. It can be extremely useful when hitting and pitching. And I'm not talking about using R2 and slamming it to like try to throw off their input. I'm talking about like taking a second to catch your breath and see what pitches they have thrown you in what locations. And also when you are pitching, if you get R2'd, R2 yourself as well and see where you have thrown the ball. If you've thrown the ball high and outside and low and inside, but you haven't thrown any high and inside, throw one there. Like you can use R2 when you're pitching as well, but don't let someone throw you off. Don't feel like you cannot use it. They've had it in the game for a long time. Use it. If you need to slow yourself down, like hesitating on offense, use it. If you want to see where their pitches are, use it. If you got to remember which pitch shapes that they have, use it. Use it while you are pitching. Don't be afraid of it. That's kind of like my big thing for myself for this game, is just to use it when I need to use it, because chances are about half of the opponents you face are going to use it. And if you kind of have this like I'm never going to use it thing, I totally get it. It's very it's admirable of you, but it's not necessarily that big of a deal. Like if someone R2s against me now, I could care less. If you can get to that point, you're going to be able to beat all the R2 players that, drive you nuts, okay? You know what I'm saying? In conclusion, I would say one final statement. Before you hit, you don't really need to move this PCI around a lot. You can just leave it in the middle. And then once you pick up the release point, then you can pick up the flight path, and then you can move the dot to the ball. So I got it in the middle. I'm going to pick up his release point. I'm going to try to figure out what pitch it is based on flight path. Another thing, too, is once you start picking up flight paths, just because you picked up a flight path doesn't mean it's time to swing. You need to still be able to see if that flight path, as you get more flight paths inputted into your brain, you need to recognize the flight path of a fastball that's actually going to be in the strike zone versus one that is not. Or a curveball that's actually going to be in the strike zone versus one that is not. So you can I would just kind of keep this PCI in the middle so I can move it wherever it is. You don't want to get too much in guessing. I'm not talking about guessing when I'm talking about pitch shapes. I'm talking about picking up the pitch shape immediately from the release point or a few feet after it leaves the pitcher's hand. Watching the wrist, all that kind of stuff is going to make you way better. So pick up that release point, keep it in the middle, and then as you pick up the release point in the flight path, then you can start to like move the PCI to the ball. So hopefully that helps out as well. But yeah, I had to get all of these out there. I got to make this video. I could go on for hours and hours and hours about this game. I just wanted to get my first video up for MLB The Show 23. I'm going to be dropping a lot of content because, I got so many gameplays. I don't even know what to do with this. I have so much to edit that it's like it could take me a month to edit all of it. So I'm just trying to do my best. I hope this helps out. Let me know down in the comments if like one of these helps out. All right, peace.